Our history books might be missing entire chapters. We are about to walk through 25 archaeological discoveries that point toward an unknown civilization before recorded history, and by the end, you will see the ancient world in a completely new light. From a 12,000-year-old temple complex to a sophisticated ancient computer, these clues suggest that advanced societies may have risen and fallen long before the pharaohs. How did a prehistoric culture build with multi-ton stones fitted together with laser-like precision? And why does a medieval world map show a continent that was buried under ice? What does it truly mean for a civilization to be lost to time? The story we have been told about our own past is a compelling one. It places the dawn of complex civilization around 5,000 years ago in the fertile river valleys of Mesopotamia and Egypt. This is the conventional timeline, a framework meticulously constructed through decades of painstaking archaeological work, carbon dating, and the interpretation of ancient texts. It forms the bedrock of our historical understanding, a seemingly unshakable sequence of events. Yet this established narrative is not a perfect fit for all the pieces being unearthed. Scattered across the globe are artifacts and sites that defy this chronology, objects of startling sophistication found in layers of earth that suggest a far greater age. These are not random glitches in the data. They are consistent, nagging inconsistencies that point toward a forgotten prologue to the human story, a deeper mystery waiting just beneath the surface of everything we think we know. The very idea seems to challenge the foundations of history itself. We are taught that civilization is a linear progression, a steady climb from simple hunter-gatherers to complex urban societies. But what if that climb was not a single, continuous line? What if there were previous ascents, other peaks that were reached long before our recorded history began, only to be forgotten when those societies faded away? This is the profound concept of a pre-recorded history civilization. It is a hypothesis that suggests a sophisticated culture, or a network of them, developed advanced knowledge and capabilities in a forgotten epoch, a time before writing could preserve their story. Their existence was ultimately cut short, perhaps by a rapid global cataclysm or the slow, inexorable grind of millennia. Their cities, their technologies, and their names were reclaimed by the earth, leaving behind only fragments so strange and out of place that we struggle to fit them into our established timeline. This is not a search for a sunken city from a specific legend, but rather for the echoes of a parent culture. Think of it as a ghost in the genetic and cultural code of later societies. Unexplained architectural techniques, astronomical knowledge that seems to appear from nowhere, and recurring myths of a great flood and a lost golden age in cultures that had no contact with each other. All these could be the cultural DNA inherited from a much older, foundational civilization. Exploring this possibility does not require abandoning science, but rather applying it with relentless curiosity to the puzzles that remain unsolved. It is a process of sifting through the evidence without prejudice, separating wild speculation from the genuinely anomalous data that demands a better explanation. The first and perhaps most profound clue rests in the windswept highlands of southeastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is not merely an ancient site, it is a historical earthquake. This sprawling complex of massive, T-shaped stone pillars arranged in deliberate circles feels utterly alien for its time. Each pillar is a canvas of intricate artistry, covered with finely carved images of foxes, boars, scorpions, and abstract symbols. The sheer scale is staggering, with the largest monoliths weighing over 10 tons, but the true shockwave comes from its age, firmly dated to around 9600 BCE. This means Göbekli Tepe was already ancient when the first stones of Stonehenge were laid over 6,000 years later. It completely upends the traditional narrative of human progress. Conventional wisdom tells us that hunter-gatherers were nomadic, focused solely on survival, incapable of the long-term planning and sophisticated social organization required for such a monumental project. They should not have had the time, the manpower, or the technical skill, yet here it is. The construction of Göbekli Tepe implies a coordinated society, a shared belief system, and a symbolic language carved in stone. It forces a fundamental question. Was monument building not a result of settled farming, but its cause? Did the need to come together for a sacred purpose like building Göbekli Tepe actually inspire the development of agriculture to feed the workers? This site is a ghost in the machine of prehistory, a whisper of a level of cultural complexity we never knew existed at the very dawn of our era. It stands as a silent, stubborn question mark against everything we thought we knew about how civilization began. While the stones of Göbekli Tepe whisper of a forgotten spiritual dawn, a later discovery speaks of a lost scientific peak. Decades ago, sponge divers exploring a Roman shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a lump of corroded bronze, initially dismissed as just another artifact. Only later, when X-rays peered through the centuries of crust, did the true marvel reveal itself. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so complex and so utterly unique that it has been called the world's first analog computer. Crafted around the 2nd century BCE, it was not a simple tool but a sophisticated instrument of bronze gears, precisely engineered to model the cosmos. By turning a hand crank, an ancient user could predict the movement of the sun and moon, the positions of planets, and even the timing of lunar and solar eclipses. Its accuracy was not matched again until the development of intricate astronomical clocks in Europe over 1,000 years later. The sheer existence of this mechanism shatters our perception of ancient Greek technology. It was not a prototype or a lucky guess. It was the product of a highly refined understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and precision engineering. This level of sophistication does not appear in a vacuum. It implies a long, undocumented tradition of scientific inquiry and mechanical craftsmanship, a lineage of knowledge that was somehow lost to the Western world for centuries. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than a relic. It is a ghost in the machine of history, a physical echo of sciences and skills that our history books never recorded. It forces us to wonder what other intellectual heights were reached, only to be forgotten by time. Far from the Mediterranean, in a remote and desolate region of China, sits a mystery that seems to defy the very timeline of human industry. Mount Baigong rises like a natural pyramid, and within its stone heart lies a network of hundreds of rust-colored iron pipes. These are not random geological formations, but tubes of varying diameters, some as thin as a toothpick and others much wider, found embedded deep within the solid rock. Some of these pipes run straight into the mountain, while others stretch toward a nearby saltwater lake. When samples were analyzed, some tests suggested an age of thousands of years, a date that stands in stark contrast to what we know of the area's history. There is no evidence of any known complex society in that region capable of such advanced metallurgy at that time. The pipes are not merely scattered, they are precisely placed, a manufactured system integrated into the natural landscape. Their very presence poses a baffling question. What purpose did they serve? The most grounded theory suggests an ancient, sophisticated plumbing system, perhaps for channeling water or gases, a concept that alone would rewrite the history of engineering in prehistoric Asia. Yet the complete absence of any associated settlement or cultural context makes even that explanation feel incomplete. The Baigong Pipes stand as a stark, industrial-grade anomaly. They are not a ceremonial site or a cryptic calendar, but what appears to be functional infrastructure, hinting at a scale of activity we have no record of. This is not just a puzzle of who made them, but why they were needed in such an inhospitable place, pushing us to consider the unsettling possibility of unknown industrial processes occurring in the deep past. Thousands of stones in a desert cave present a puzzle that defies simple explanation. The Ica Stones of Peru are a collection of thousands of andesite rocks, each one covered in intricate, precise carvings. The images etched into their dark surfaces are not typical ancient art. They show human figures living alongside creatures we would instantly recognize as dinosaurs, some in poses that suggest domestication. Other stones depict what appear to be complex medical procedures, including detailed scenes of open-heart surgery and cesarean sections. There are even carvings of people using tools that look remarkably like telescopes to observe the stars. The sheer volume of these stones is staggering, and the iconography is remarkably consistent across the entire collection. This consistency is part of what makes the mystery so compelling. If these are a hoax, it was an undertaking of immense scale and dedication. The controversy surrounding their authenticity is intense. A local farmer claimed to have discovered them, but later admitted to forging some, casting a long shadow of doubt over the entire collection. Yet many researchers note that the patina, the natural film of age on the stone's surfaces and within the carved grooves, suggests they could be genuinely ancient. If that were true, the implications would be world-shaking. The knowledge displayed on the Ica Stones is a profound anachronism. How could an ancient culture know the anatomical structure of a human heart or the visual appearance of a stegosaurus, a creature whose bones were only scientifically reconstructed in the modern era? These stones do not just challenge our timeline, they propose a parallel one where human history is woven with threads of biology and astronomy we thought were discovered millennia later. Whether a magnificent hoax or a genuine artifact, the Ica Stones force us to confront the uncomfortable limits of our understanding, presenting a vision of the past that is as bewildering as it is detailed. Across the lush landscapes of Costa Rica, another kind of mystery sits in plain sight. Hundreds of stone spheres, some as small as a baseball and others towering over 2 meters tall, are scattered through the Diquis Delta. These are not rough, natural boulders. They are breathtakingly perfect orbs carved from a hard, volcanic rock called gabbro. Their surfaces are unnervingly smooth, their shapes achieving a sphericity that seems to defy the capabilities of the time. They were crafted in a window of time between 300 BCE and 300 CE, a period we associate with regional chiefdoms. Yet the level of skill these objects represent feels out of place. How did ancient artisans, presumably using stone tools, achieve such geometric perfection? The process would have required more than simple carving. It would have demanded a deep, practical understanding of symmetry, an almost intuitive grasp of three-dimensional geometry, and a painstaking, multi-step finishing technique to smooth the stone to its final, flawless state. This was not crude monument building, it was precision engineering in stone. The true purpose of these spheres is lost to us. Some were found arranged in alignments, perhaps tracing celestial paths or marking important social boundaries. Others seem to have been moved from their original positions long ago. They stand now as silent, geometric sentinels, a testament to a skill set that our current histories do not fully attribute to the pre-Columbian cultures of this region. They are not just artifacts, they are physical questions. What drove this society to invest such immense effort into creating perfection in form? Their very presence suggests a technological chapter in the ancient Americas that we are only just beginning to read. Beneath the clear, blue waters off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, the ocean floor holds a secret that blurs the line between nature and human artistry. Here lies the Yonaguni Monument, a massive, tiered structure rising from the seabed like a sunken ziggurat. Its features are strikingly geometric, with sharp, straight edges, wide, flat platforms, and what can only be described as staircases ascending its sides. At first glance, it appears to be the ruins of an ancient, man-made complex, a pyramid swallowed by the sea. The debate over its origin is one of the most compelling in modern archaeology. Some geologists point to the region's unique sandstone, which can fracture along straight plains, creating formations that mimic architecture. They see a remarkable but entirely natural geological process. Yet other researchers highlight details that are far harder to explain through natural forces alone. They point to the presence of what look like perfectly carved channels, two pillars that appear to be placed side by side, and even a large stone that bears a striking resemblance to a human face. These are not random fractures, they argue, but the hallmarks of intelligent design, of a culture that shaped the stone with purpose. The true enigma of Yonaguni lies not just in its form, but in its location. The structure now sits at a depth that places its creation squarely during the last ice age, when sea levels were dramatically lower, and this area would have been dry land. If this is indeed a man-made megalith, it implies the existence of a sophisticated culture in prehistoric Japan, a society capable of large-scale stone construction over 10,000 years ago. This was a civilization that would have witnessed the world changing around them, as the glaciers melted and the oceans steadily rose, eventually consuming their homeland and everything they had built. The Yonaguni Monument stands as a ghostly silhouette in the water, a silent testament to a world lost to the waves. It forces us to ask whether we are looking at a fantastic trick of geology or the sunken cornerstone of a forgotten chapter in human history. A tool encased in stone presents a paradox that seems to defy the very laws of time. In 1936, on a family outing near London, Texas, a discovery was made that would become a classic enigma. A rock broken open revealed something incredible inside, a hammer with a wooden handle and an iron head, perfectly preserved within a solid concretion of stone. The hammer itself appears to be a well-made, functional tool, but the impossible part is the rock that encased it. Geological analysis dates that specific stone concretion to the Cretaceous period, a time over 100 million years ago when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. This creates an unthinkable scenario. How could a modern-looking hammer be sealed inside a rock that formed 100 million years before humans are supposed to have evolved, let alone mastered ironworking? The most common explanation from skeptics is a process called rapid concretion. This is a natural phenomenon where minerals can cement around an object, forming a hard rock shell in a much shorter period, perhaps only a few centuries. In this view, the hammer is not ancient at all, but a tool from a more recent era, maybe a miner's hammer from the 1800s that simply became enveloped by stone. Yet this explanation does not fully satisfy everyone who has studied the artifact. The wooden handle is partially coalified, a process that suggests it underwent a significant transformation, and the iron of the head is of a remarkably pure quality, forged in a way that is unusual for more recent historical tools. This object sits at the heart of a profound mystery. It forces us to question our most fundamental assumptions. Either our understanding of geological processes like concretion is incomplete, and it can sometimes mimic the appearance of immensely ancient rock, or our timeline of human industry is catastrophically wrong. The London hammer does not stand alone. It is part of a larger pattern of out-of-place artifacts that challenge the neat, linear progression we cling to. It is a physical question mark, a single, stubborn object that dares us to consider a history far stranger and more complex than any textbook has ever contained. Deep within the remote Baigong Pipes Mountains, a story exists that pushes the boundaries of the ancient mystery into the realm of the extraterrestrial. The legend of the Dropa Stones begins with a reported archaeological expedition in 1938, where researchers exploring a series of caves claimed to have made a bizarre discovery. They allegedly found unusual small skeletal remains and alongside them hundreds of stone discs. These were no ordinary rocks. Each disc was said to have a fine, spiral groove running from its center out to the rim, a groove that upon closer inspection was actually a continuous line of tiny, hieroglyphic-like characters. The narrative takes an even more incredible turn with the claim that these inscriptions were eventually decoded. The story says the spirals told a tragic tale of a group of beings called the Dropa, whose spacecraft crash landed in the inhospitable mountains thousands of years ago. Unable to repair their vessel, they were stranded on our world, their story eventually being etched onto stone as a permanent record of their fate. This account, of course, is met with profound skepticism from the scientific community. No verifiable evidence of the discs has been presented in modern times. Their current location is a mystery, and the entire story is riddled with inconsistencies that make it impossible to substantiate. Yet, the enduring power of the Dropa tale is not in its factual accuracy, but in what it represents. It serves as a powerful cultural artifact, a modern myth that perfectly encapsulates a deep and timeless human fascination. It speaks to our longing for connection, our curiosity about the stars, and our inherent desire to find explanations for the unknown, even if that means looking to the skies for answers to the deepest riddles of our own past. The stones may not be physical proof of ancient astronauts, but they are an undeniable testament to the stories we tell when confronted with a history we do not yet fully understand. Isolated in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Easter Island stands as a silent testament to human ambition. Here, the Moai statues stare with stoic intensity across the landscape, their monolithic presence a riddle carved in volcanic stone. These are not merely sculptures, they are feats of engineering that challenge our understanding of the society that created them. Carved from compressed volcanic ash between 1250 and 1500 CE, nearly 1,000 of these figures were quarried, shaped, and somehow transported across miles of rugged terrain. The largest of them, left unfinished in the quarry, weighs an estimated 82 tons, a weight that would challenge modern machinery. The Rapa Nui people accomplished this without the wheel, without draft animals, and on an island with limited resources. How did they move these giants? This question has sparked decades of experimentation and debate. Some theories suggest they were walked upright in a rocking motion, guided by teams of people with ropes. Others propose they were laid on a type of sled and pulled over log rails. Each explanation requires a breathtaking degree of coordination, physics knowledge, and social organization. The sheer logistics of feeding and housing the workers, of managing the project over generations, points to a society of remarkable sophistication and unity. Their eventual hardship is a poignant part of the story, but the greater mystery lies in their achievement. The Moai are not just silent sentinels, they are the physical manifestation of a cultural peak, a level of societal capability that seems to echo from a forgotten playbook of ancient engineering, leaving us to wonder what other knowledge was lost when their civilization changed course. High in the Andes, the stone walls of Sacsayhuamán defy logic and time. This fortress overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco is a masterpiece of megalithic engineering, built from blocks so immense they seem like the work of giants. The stones are not uniform bricks, but a chaotic jigsaw puzzle of gigantic, irregular polygons, some weighing close to 200 tons. Yet each one is locked to its neighbors with a seam of such breathtaking precision that you cannot force the edge of a razor blade into the join. This is dry stone construction at its absolute pinnacle, a technique that uses no mortar whatsoever. The entire structure relies solely on the perfect fit of one impossible stone to the next. And this is not just an aesthetic achievement, it is a profound feat of seismic engineering. For centuries, this region has been shaken by powerful earthquakes, forces that have toppled Spanish colonial cathedrals built on top of these foundations. Yet the Inca walls of Sacsayhuamán have not budged. They simply settle and readjust during a tremor, the intricate, interlocking shapes allowing the entire structure to move as one fluid, unbreakable mass. This demonstrates an almost intuitive understanding of how to build with the earth, not against it. How was this accomplished? The official history credits the Inca, and their skill is undeniable. But the methods used to achieve this perfection remain one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. How did they quarry these behemoths without iron tools? How did they transport them across mountainous terrain without the wheel? And most mysteriously, how did they shape these granite giants, some of the hardest stone on the planet, with such microscopic accuracy that the joints are virtually invisible? The sheer scale and precision suggest a knowledge of stoneworking that feels almost supernatural. Some researchers propose they used a technique of heating the stone with fire and then rapidly cooling it with water to create fracture lines, followed by painstaking abrasion with harder stones and sand. But even this theory struggles to explain the flawless, complex curves and angles of the mating surfaces. It is as if the stones were softened like clay and then molded into place. This has led to persistent speculation that the Inca may have been building upon the foundations of a much older, far more technologically advanced culture, a predecessor civilization whose name and techniques are now lost. The walls of Sacsayhuamán stand not just as a fortress, but as a permanent question. They are a physical argument for a lost chapter in engineering, a level of sophistication with stone that we can scarcely replicate today, pointing to a parent civilization whose understanding of physics and materials science remains just beyond our grasp. 3 centuries before any explorer would officially lay eyes on it, the frozen southern continent was already on a map. In 1513, Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis compiled a world map that remains one of history's most perplexing documents. It is celebrated for its startlingly precise outlines of the western African coast and the eastern bulge of South America, achievements that alone would mark it as a masterpiece of its era. Yet its most baffling feature lies at the bottom of the world. The map depicts a landmass that aligns uncannily with the northern coastline of Antarctica, a continent that would remain undiscovered by the Western world for another 300 years. This alone is an incredible anomaly, but the mystery deepens. The land is shown not as a frozen wasteland, but largely free of its immense ice cap, a condition that geological evidence suggests last existed thousands of years ago. How could a 16th century admiral have known this? Piri Reis himself noted in the map's margins that he was not the original source of this information. He wrote that he had compiled his work from many source maps, including some that dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. This admission opens a door to a far more profound possibility. The accuracy of the Antarctic coastline implies that the original cartographers who first surveyed it did so in an ancient, pre-glacial era. This points to the existence of a sophisticated seafaring culture possessing navigational and mathematical skills advanced enough to chart a global geography, a culture whose maps and knowledge were later preserved in great libraries like that of Alexandria, only to be copied, fragmented, and eventually lost. The Piri Reis Map, then, is more than parchment and ink. It is a ghostly echo, a surviving copy of knowledge that should not exist. It forces us to consider a forgotten age of exploration, when ancient mariners may have sailed waters and mapped lands that history has completely forgotten. From the high Andes, we descend to the stark, flat expanse of the Peruvian desert, where the very earth itself becomes a canvas for the inexplicable. Here, the Nazca Lines stretch across nearly 200 square miles of arid plateau, a gallery of gigantic art that defies simple understanding. Created by the Nazca culture over a 1,000-year period, these are not mere scratches on the ground. They are geoglyphs, intricate designs made by removing the dark, sun-baked surface stones to reveal the lighter-colored soil beneath. The resulting images are breathtaking in their scale and variety. A hummingbird with wings outstretched over 300 feet, a spider with legs perfectly proportioned, a monkey with a characteristically coiled tail, and a condor whose wingspan seems to embrace the desert floor. Alongside these biomorphic figures are clean, sharp geometric shapes, miles-long trapezoids, straight lines that run unerringly to the horizon, and complex spirals that seem to pull the eye into a vortex. The sheer size of these creations is the core of their mystery. The largest figures are over 1,200 feet long, so vast that their forms dissolve into meaningless grooves when you stand beside them on the ground. They only cohere into recognizable, breathtaking art when viewed from a significant height, a perspective the Nazca people themselves are not believed to have possessed. How could they design what they could never hope to see? The most accepted theories suggest these lines served a profound ceremonial or astronomical purpose. Perhaps they were ritual pathways walked by priests during sacred ceremonies, their forms representing constellations or acting as a massive calendar tied to the solstices. The precision, however, is staggering. The lines are arrows straight across miles of rough terrain, and the animal figures are rendered with a biological accuracy that suggests deep observation. This was not random etching, it was a deliberate, planned, and meticulously executed project that spanned generations. The unavoidable question is one of perspective. Did the Nazca possess a form of hot air balloon technology, a secret lost to time that allowed them to survey their work from above? Or were these magnificent designs intended not for human eyes at all, but created as messages for celestial watchers, a form of communication with the gods they believed resided in the sky? The Nazca Lines do not just depict animals and shapes, they embody a profound disconnect between the capabilities we attribute to an ancient people and the magnificent, almost impossible legacy they left behind. They are a puzzle written on the floor of the world, a testament to a culture that saw its landscape not as a limit, but as a page for a story we are still struggling to read. The silent forests of stone in Brittany hold a different kind of mystery. Here at Carnac, the landscape itself seems to have been rearranged by giants. Over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones march across the French countryside in eerie, precise rows. Some stand alone as solitary menhirs, while others form massive dolmens, the ancient stone tables of burial chambers. This is not a random scattering of rocks. This is a vast, organized composition in granite, erected over thousands of years during the Neolithic period. The sheer scale of the endeavor is almost incomprehensible. Consider the logistics of quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of stones, some weighing tens of tons, across this vast terrain. This was not the work of a scattered, simple tribe. It speaks of a society with profound unity, a shared vision, and a level of social organization that allowed them to execute a project spanning generations. What powerful belief or urgent need could possibly justify such an immense, sustained investment of human energy? The purpose of Carnac is a riddle that has endured for millennia. Some researchers see the stars in its alignments, proposing it was a sophisticated astronomical observatory, its rows pointing to solstice sunrises or major lunar standstills. Others feel its primary function was spiritual, a sacred landscape for rituals connecting the community to the earth and the ancestors resting within the dolmens. There is even a fascinating theory that the arrangement, with its deep foundations set in a specific substrate, could have functioned as a massive seismic detector, the stones acting as silent sentinels sensitive to vibrations from the earth itself. Each theory offers a glimpse into the minds of the builders, a people who perceived their world as an interconnected system of celestial, terrestrial, and spiritual forces. The Carnac Stones are not a monument to a single king or a single event. They are a testament to a collective consciousness, a society whose sophisticated understanding of their world is now entirely lost, communicated to us only through the silent, enduring language of aligned stone. Deep within the sun-scorched Sahara, the Tassili Plateau rises from the Algerian desert like a petrified forest of stone. This vast natural fortress holds a gallery of art that time itself seems to have forgotten. Across the walls of its countless caves and rock shelters are more than 15,000 paintings and engravings, a vivid chronicle of a world that has long since vanished. These images, some created as far back as 6000 BCE, show a Sahara that was once a lush green paradise. We see herds of giraffe and elephant, rivers teeming with hippos, and scenes of human communities living in harmony with this abundant land. This art is a precious window into the dawn of human civilization in North Africa, a record of daily life, hunting, and ritual. Yet scattered among these familiar scenes are figures that stand apart, images so strange they seem to belong to a different story entirely. These are the so-called round head figures. Painted in ochre and white, they tower over other human forms. Their most striking feature is their large, often featureless, circular heads, seemingly attached to bodies that are sometimes depicted as floating or weightless. Their forms are simple, almost schematic, yet they project an otherworldly presence. To the modern eye, they are irresistibly reminiscent of astronauts or divers, their large helmets and seemingly bulky suits suggesting an environment alien to our own. Mainstream archaeology offers a more grounded, yet equally fascinating interpretation. Scholars suggest these are likely stylized representations of shamanic figures, ritual dancers, or individuals in a trance state, their enlarged heads symbolizing expanded consciousness or a connection to the spirit world. They could be depictions of gods or mythological ancestors from a complex cosmology that is now entirely lost to us. This explanation fits the known patterns of human symbolic expression. Yet the nagging question remains, why this specific, consistent, and technologically suggestive form? The art of Tassili is not merely decorative, it is a sophisticated symbolic language. These enigmatic figures were not doodles, they were central to the belief system of the people who painted them. They represent concepts, beings, or states of being that were so important they were rendered over and over, preserved for millennia in the dry desert air. Whether they are shamanic visions or something else, their true meaning is a code we have not yet cracked. They are a powerful reminder that the ancient human mind was capable of conceptualizing far more than just the tangible world around them. These paintings are a window not just into a lost green Sahara, but into the lost inner world of its people, a cosmology where the line between the earthly and the otherworldly was beautifully and mysteriously blurred. A book exists that holds its secrets tighter than any vault. The Voynich Manuscript is a small, unassuming codex, its pages filled with a script that has defied every attempt at translation for over a century. Carbon dating confirms it was created in the early 15th century, yet every other aspect of it is an anomaly. The writing flows in an elegant, unknown alphabet, a language that bears no resemblance to any recorded tongue on Earth. Its pages are crowded with bizarre, vibrant illustrations that deepen the mystery. There are detailed drawings of plants that cannot be identified by any botanist, their leaves and flowers belonging to a flora that seems alien. Astronomical charts depict celestial arrangements that do not match our night sky, and intricate diagrams show networks of tubes and vessels that could be biological, or perhaps something else entirely. One of the most famous sections depicts groups of unclothed women bathing in interconnected, vibrant green pools, a scene that feels both mundane and profoundly strange. The sheer complexity and internal consistency of the manuscript suggest it is not a hoax, but a serious, deliberate work. It appears to be a scientific or medical treatise, perhaps a pharmacopoeia detailing the properties of those unknown plants. But if that is true, it represents a complete system of knowledge that is utterly divorced from our historical record. This is not a puzzle with a missing key. It is a library written in a language for which no dictionary exists. The manuscript is a ghost of a culture or an intellectual tradition that left no other trace. A single, beautiful, and utterly baffling artifact that proves some chapters of our past are written in ink we can no longer read. Deep in the forests of Bosnia, the earth itself seems to have given birth to perfect forms. Scattered near the town of Zavodovicai, hundreds of stone spheres lie half-buried, some as large as a small car. Their surfaces are often unnervingly smooth, their shapes approaching geometric perfection. To those who first documented them, they appeared as artifacts from a forgotten age, deliberately placed by human hands. The immediate assumption was that Europe had its own version of the Costa Rican spheres, a potential link in a global chain of ancient, unexplained objects. Yet the story here is far from settled. Many geologists point to a natural process called concretion, where minerals cement around a central nucleus within sedimentary rock, sometimes forming remarkably round shapes over immense periods. They see a fascinating but entirely earthly phenomenon. The debate, however, is fueled by the sphere's specific context. They are often found in clusters, a pattern that feels deliberate rather than random. Some of the stones display a symmetry that seems to transcend typical geological chance. This creates a compelling tension between two possibilities. Are we looking at a masterwork of natural sculpture or the eroded remnants of a sophisticated prehistoric culture? If these spheres were indeed shaped by human intention, their implications are profound. They would not stand alone, but would instead form a powerful triad with the spheres of Costa Rica and other similar objects found across the world. This pattern suggests something far more significant than isolated, curious artifacts. It points toward a shared, perhaps interconnected, technological or spiritual practice that spanned continents. What common thread could possibly link the ancient Americas, the heart of Europe, and potentially other regions? Was it a universal form of symbolic expression, a way to map the heavens, or a marker of sacred spaces that we no longer understand? The Bosnian spheres, whether natural wonders or human creations, force us to confront the idea of a unified prehistoric worldview, a lost language of form and stone whose grammar we are only beginning to perceive. High in the harsh Siberian wilderness, the Gornaya Shoria megaliths present a problem of impossible scale. Here, scattered across a remote mountainside, are stone blocks of such staggering size that they seem to belong to the realm of myth. Some of these granite giants are estimated to weigh well over 3,000 tons, a mass that would challenge the most powerful cranes and transport systems of our modern era. Yet these are not rough, natural formations. They are cut and shaped, fitted against one another with that same breathtaking, laser-precise joinery we witnessed at Sacsayhuamán. The surfaces meet with a seam so tight it appears fused, a clear signature of intentional, masterful construction. The location itself adds to the profound mystery. This is not an accessible river valley or a gentle plain. This site is buried in a rugged, unforgiving landscape, a place that would have been a monumental challenge to reach, let alone to work in. The sheer logistics are baffling. How do you quarry a single block weighing as much as a small cargo ship? How do you move it up or down a mountain without the wheel, without steel, and in a climate that is brutally cold for much of the year? The official historical record for this region offers no answers. There is no known culture, no documented empire, no suggested technology that accounts for this. It stands in complete isolation, a colossal anomaly with no context. The Gornaya Shoria megaliths do not just challenge our timeline, they mock it. They suggest a chapter of human history where engineering capabilities reached a peak that we cannot logically place on any map or in any era. This was not a gradual progression. This feels like a leap, a sudden appearance of a skill set so advanced that its very existence implies a lost parent civilization, a culture whose name and ultimate fate are now completely erased by the Siberian frost and the slow, patient work of millennia. Sometimes the most compelling mysteries are not found in forgotten ruins, but hidden in plain sight. Inside the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, Egypt, a set of carved hieroglyphs has ignited a firestorm of modern speculation. To many who see them, these symbols bear an uncanny and startling resemblance to a helicopter, a submarine, and even a jet plane. The shapes are so distinct and so seemingly modern that it is difficult to dismiss the immediate, jarring impression that ancient artisans carved images of 20th century technology onto their sacred stone walls. The official explanation from Egyptology is both logical and grounded in the practical realities of ancient monument building. This phenomenon is known as a palimpsest, a term for a surface that has been reused with new writing carved over the old. In this case, it is believed that the original hieroglyphs, which likely spelled out the royal names and titles of Seti I, were later partially plastered over and recarved to honor his successor, Ramesses II. Over centuries, the plaster filler has fallen away and the elements have worn down the stone. What remains is a composite image, a chance overlap of two separate sets of carvings from different time periods. The seemingly modern vehicles are, in this view, simply a happy accident of erosion and recycled stone, a random collision of ancient symbols that only look familiar to our technologically conditioned eyes. Yet the power of this image persists, defying the most rational of explanations. The resemblance is not just vague, it is remarkably detailed, with what looks like a cockpit, a tail boom, and rotor blades on the helicopter glyph. This is why the Abydos carvings have become such an enduring symbol within this search for lost knowledge. They represent a deep and very human desire to find validation for our own technological world in the distant past. They are a Rorschach test on stone where we project our own context onto an ancient canvas. This is the fundamental challenge of interpreting the past. The context in which these symbols were created and understood is entirely lost to us. We are left with only the silent, enigmatic forms, separated from their creators by a chasm of thousands of years. The helicopter hieroglyph is therefore more than a curiosity. It is a profound lesson in perception. It reminds us that our interpretation of history is always filtered through the lens of our own time, and that the line between a meaningless coincidence and a world-shaking revelation can be as thin as the layer of plaster that once filled those carved grooves. Beneath the waves off the coast of modern India lies a city that was once thought to be only a legend. Marine archaeologists surveying the seabed near Dwarka have mapped the remains of a vast urban settlement, its foundations and stone structures silently enduring the ocean's embrace. They have recovered artifacts from the seafloor, from intricate pottery to stone pillars, and the dating of these objects points to a timeline of over 3,500 years. This is not a random collection of ruins, it is the ghost of a sophisticated, planned city, complete with fortifications and a harbor, now submerged in the very waters that once sustained it. This discovery resonates with a profound echo from Hindu scripture, where the ancient texts of the Mahabharata describe a magnificent, divinely ordained city named Dwarka, a powerful and advanced kingdom that was ultimately consumed by the rising sea. For centuries, this account was viewed as pure mythology, a symbolic tale with no basis in physical reality. The underwater ruins force a complete re-evaluation of that assumption. They suggest that these epic stories passed down through countless generations may not be mere fiction, but could instead be a form of historical memory, a poetic retelling of a real cultural catastrophe. The submergence of a major city would have been a traumatic, generation-defining event for its people, a cataclysm so immense that its story was woven into the very fabric of their identity and preserved as sacred lore. The sunken city off Dwarka's coast acts as a powerful bridge, connecting the tangible world of archaeology with the intangible world of myth. It proposes that our oldest stories might be the faded, dramatized records of actual places and events from a forgotten chapter of human history. This discovery does more than just potentially validate an ancient text. It challenges us to listen more carefully to all the world's great epics. If one legend can be anchored to a physical location on the seafloor, it opens the door to a tantalizing possibility that other foundational myths from across the globe might also contain kernels of truth about advanced societies that rose, thrived, and ultimately vanished at the dawn of our recorded time. The quiet hum of electricity is a sound we associate entirely with the modern world. Yet a small, unassuming clay jar from ancient Iraq whispers a very different story. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this artifact consists of a simple terracotta pot, inside of which sits a rolled copper cylinder, and at its center an iron rod. If this vessel were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, it would create a chemical reaction between the two different metals, generating a small but measurable electric current. Several of these curious objects have been found, dating to the Parthian or Sassanid period around 2,000 years ago. Their existence presents a fascinating puzzle. What was its purpose? The most compelling theory is that it was used for electroplating, perhaps to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto other metal objects, a practice known from the era. Others suggest it could have had a religious or medicinal function, where the mild tingling current was interpreted as a spiritual force or used in therapeutic practices. The debate among scholars is intense, with some arguing it was merely a sacred vessel for storing scrolls. Yet the physical design is undeniably efficient for producing electricity. This is not a complex machine, but it is a working principle, a basic application of electrochemistry that would not be formally rediscovered in the West for another 1,800 years. The Baghdad Battery does not imply ancient cities lit by electric lights, but it does suggest something perhaps more profound, a sporadic, practical understanding of a natural force. It stands as powerful evidence that the timeline of invention is not a straight, unbroken line. Key discoveries can be made, applied in a limited context, and then vanish from common knowledge for centuries, only to be stumbled upon again. This artifact is a ghost of a forgotten experiment, a single, quiet spark in the deep past that challenges our certainty about who first unlocked the secrets of the world. A single, weathered coin found in the dirt of a Native American settlement tells a story that textbooks struggle to contain. Known as the Maine Penny, this small piece of silver was minted in Norway between 1065 and 1080 CE. Its discovery at an archaeological site along the coast of Maine is a profound historical anomaly, the only pre-Columbian Norse artifact ever officially unearthed within the United States. Here, nestled among the tools and hearths of indigenous life, lies a coin from a world away, a solitary whisper of contact across the vast Atlantic Ocean centuries before Columbus set sail. The most logical explanation is that it traveled not across the sea directly, but overland through long-established and extensive native trade routes that stretched from the Arctic down the eastern seaboard. A Norse object acquired by indigenous peoples in Newfoundland could have been passed from hand to hand, community to community, over generations, until it finally came to rest in Maine. This is a perfectly plausible, grounded theory, yet the coin's very existence, so far from the only known Norse settlement at Elance Ox Meadows, cannot help but ignite a more thrilling possibility. What if this coin is not a lone wanderer, but a stray piece of evidence for more extensive, unrecorded voyages down the North American coastline? The Norse sagas speak of explorations into a land they called Vinland, but our physical evidence for their presence has been frustratingly limited. The Maine Penny dangles the tantalizing prospect that their travels were more far-reaching than we have proven, that their interactions with the peoples of this new world were more complex and widespread than a single, short-lived settlement. This one artifact challenges the simplicity of our historical maps. It suggests that the medieval world was far more interconnected than we have given it credit for, with threads of contact and exchange woven across oceans, threads so fragile that only a single silver coin remains to hint at their existence. It is a powerful reminder that history is not just written in grand monuments and epic battles, but also in the quiet, solitary evidence of a connection that was made and then lost to time. Another stone, found half buried in the roots of a Minnesota poplar tree, tells a story of hardship far from home. The Kensington Runestone, discovered by a Swedish immigrant farmer in 1898, is a 200-pound slab of greywacke inscribed with a message that has divided experts for over a century. The runes, a Scandinavian alphabet, describe a journey of exploration and tragedy. They speak of a party of 30 Norsemen with 10 of their companions left by the sea who traveled west from their ships. Most chillingly, the inscription claims that 10 of these explorers were killed, found lying red with blood, a detail that gives the stone a visceral, sorrowful weight. The date carved into the stone is 1362, more than a century after the Viking Age is conventionally thought to have ended, and 130 years after the Norse settlement at Elance Ox Meadows was abandoned. If this stone is authentic, it does more than just suggest a chance landing. It chronicles a deliberate, deep inland expedition into the very heart of North America, a venture completely absent from the known Viking sagas. This would mean that Norse presence in the New World was not a brief, failed experiment, but a persistent, exploratory effort spanning generations, with chapters of its history that were completely lost. The debate over the stone's legitimacy is a battlefield of linguistics and archaeology. Skeptics point to anomalies in the runic forms and grammar. arguing they are inconsistent with 14th century usage and more likely the work of a modern forger, perhaps the farmer himself. Proponents, however, counter that language is fluid and that regional dialects could account for the differences. They argue that the weathering of the inscription and the way the stone was found, gripped by the roots of a very old tree, suggest a much greater age. This single artifact is a perfect storm of historical mystery. It represents the agonizing difficulty of proving a lost chapter, where one piece of compelling, yet contested, evidence can rewrite an entire narrative. The Kensington Runestone stands as a permanent question, a granite whisper of a journey we cannot confirm, left by explorers whose names we may never know. The stillness of the desert can preserve more than just sand and stone. In the arid, windswept Tarim Basin of western China, the dry air performed a miracle of conservation, holding in its grasp a collection of individuals who should not, according to our old maps, have been there at all. These are the Tarim Mummies, and their discovery sent a ripple through our understanding of ancient human movement. They are strikingly well preserved, their features rendered with an almost lifelike clarity. And these features are unmistakably Caucasian, with light brown or red hair, tall statures, and faces that would not look out of place in the heart of Europe. They are not alone in their preservation, for their clothing is also a testament to a distant homeland, woven from woolen textiles in sophisticated plaids that feel distinctly Western. The true shock lies in their age, firmly dated to as early as 1800 BCE. This was a time when Chinese civilization was, according to traditional history, developing in a state of relative isolation along the Yellow River. The presence of these people with their European roots in the very heart of Asia shatters that long-held narrative. It reveals that the Silk Road, that famous network of trade and cultural exchange, was not the first connection between East and West. It had a deep prehistoric predecessor, a forgotten pathway of migration that brought these travelers thousands of miles across the continent millennia before we thought such journeys were possible. These individuals are more than just preserved remains. They are a genetic and cultural enigma. Their burial practices, their clothing, their very bodies speak of a story not recorded in any history book. They tell a tale of a world that was far more fluid and interconnected than our rigid timelines and maps have ever allowed. Their silent presence forces us to redraw the ancient world, not as a collection of isolated cultures, but as a vast, dynamic tapestry of movement and meeting, where the threads of human destiny were woven across continents in ways we are only just beginning to comprehend. These stone walls are a conversation between worlds, a language spoken in geometry and pressure. We return to the high Andes of Peru, to the fortress of Sacsayhuamán and the terraces of Ollantaytambo, where the stonework transcends mere construction and enters the realm of the inexplicable. The immense blocks are not simply stacked, they are woven together. Their edges are not straight lines, but a complex puzzle of multi-angled protrusions and corresponding recesses, fitting together with a seam so flawless it feels less like masonry and more like a three-dimensional fabric. The surfaces are unnervingly smooth, with a polish that seems machined, a finish that should be impossible for a culture working with stone hammers and bronze chisels. This is not the work of brute force, it is the product of a profound and intimate understanding of material science. The method used to achieve this remains one of archaeology's most enduring secrets. How do you carve granite, one of the hardest stones on the planet, with such microscopic precision that the joints are not just tight, but interlocked in 3 dimensions? The conventional explanation involves patient abrasion using sand, water, and harder stones, a theory that accounts for the smooth faces. But it struggles to explain the intricate internal angles, the perfect concave curves that mate with convex bulges on the adjacent block. This has led to a more speculative yet persistent idea. Could the builders have possessed a lost science for softening stone, perhaps using a plant-based chemical compound that temporarily made the granite pliable like clay, allowing them to mold it into these perfect, interlocking forms? This would explain the lack of tool marks and the seemingly fluid, organic shapes of the joins. Whether through unknown tools, a forgotten chemical process, or a vibrational technique we can no longer conceive, the result is the same. This is evidence of engineering that feels industrial in its precision, executed in a pre-Iron Age society. It stands as a monumental argument that our current timeline of technological progress is incomplete. These stones suggest a peak of capability, a parent culture whose understanding of physics and materials was so advanced that its techniques appear to us not as primitive steps, but as a sophisticated echo from a forgotten age of builders. Buried beneath the turf of a Scottish field for half a century, a 5,000-year-old mystery was waiting. The Cochno Stone is a colossal slab, its surface a dense tapestry of artistry carved in an age before metal. Across its expanse, hundreds of intricate symbols spiral and swirl, a complex language of concentric circles, radiating lines, and meandering grooves known as cup and ring marks. While similar patterns appear on stones scattered across Europe, the sheer scale and density of the Cochno Stone is unparalleled. It is not a simple collection of marks, but a grand, unified composition, a masterwork of Neolithic symbolism that must have held profound meaning for the people who created it. The moment you see its entire surface uncovered, the question becomes inescapable. What powerful idea was so important that it demanded to be etched into the earth on such a monumental scale? The theories are as fascinating as the stone itself. Some researchers see the night sky in its spirals and circles, proposing it is a detailed map of constellations or a sophisticated calendar tracking the cycles of the moon and sun. Others look at the rhythmic, trance-inducing patterns and suggest it represents a portal to other states of awareness, a physical depiction of the inner journeys undertaken by shamans or spiritual leaders. The grooves and cups might even have been used to channel water or other substances during rituals, turning the stone into a dynamic, interactive focal point for ceremony. What is undeniable is that the Cochno Stone is not primitive graffiti. It is the product of a sophisticated intellectual and spiritual worldview, a testament to a culture that saw the cosmos as an interconnected, living system and sought to encode its secrets into the very land they lived on. This massive slab is a final, powerful clue. It reminds us that the human drive to understand our place in the universe, to map the stars and explore the depths of consciousness, is not a modern invention. It is an ancient, fundamental part of who we are, a legacy carved in stone by our ancestors, whose profound connection to the cosmos we are only now beginning to rediscover. Each of these 25 clues presents its own fascinating puzzle, a singular oddity that can be debated in isolation. But when you step back and look at the entire collection, a profound shift occurs. The individual dots begin to connect, forming a larger, more startling picture. A single anomaly can be dismissed as a fluke, but a consistent pattern of anomalies points toward a deeper truth. The evidence does not whisper, it speaks with a collective voice. Across continents and millennia, we see the same remarkable signatures appearing again and again. There is the ghost of advanced stoneworking, a knowledge of materials that allowed cultures to shape granite and basalt with a precision that defies their supposed tools. There are echoes of precise astronomical alignments, encoded in temples and stone circles, revealing a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. We find tantalizing hints of potential transoceanic contact, artifacts and genetic markers that suggest our ancient world was far more interconnected than we ever imagined. And we keep stumbling upon artifacts that feel out of their time, objects of complex technology or profound knowledge that seem to have no logical place in the timeline we have constructed. This mosaic of evidence does not force us to believe in a single, globe-spanning super-civilization like something from a fantasy novel. The picture that emerges is more complex and perhaps more realistic. It suggests that human history is not a simple, linear climb from primitive to advanced. Instead, it may be characterized by great cycles, long-forgotten rhythms of rise and fall. Societies may have reached peaks of cultural and technological sophistication, only to be brought low by a cataclysm, a slow environmental shift, or the simple fragmentation of time. In these collapses, the vast libraries of their knowledge, the intricate details of their engineering and science would have been lost, leaving behind only the most durable fragments, their megalithic structures, their strange mechanisms, their cryptic maps. These fragments are the legacy of those forgotten chapters, the scattered pages of a lost history. They hint that our own modern age of discovery is not the first, but perhaps merely the latest in a series of such ages, each one rediscovering fragments of the last. This cyclical view of history invites us to look at every ancient wonder with new eyes, not as the first clumsy attempts of primitive people, but as the enduring echoes of a much deeper and more mysterious human story. Our journey through these 25 archaeological clues reveals a history far more mysterious and wondrous than any single textbook could contain. From the towering pillars of Göbekli Tepe to the submerged structures of Yonaguni, the evidence invites us to question, to wonder, and to remain open to the possibilities that lie hidden in the earth and in our own past. The search for an unknown civilization is not about replacing one dogma with another, but about embracing the complexity and uncertainty of the human story. Let these mysteries inspire you to look deeper, to question the established narrative, and to remember that history is not a closed book, but an ongoing excavation. Share your thoughts on which clue you find most compelling in the comments below, and subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest historical